Hello, everybody. My name is Aaron Canole, and welcome back to another edition here of the Movie Battleground. Tonight, we are bringing back two competitors who have already competed once this year. The year didn't quite start out on the strongest foot for either of them, so they've been brought back in here tonight, and I'm sure both are hoping to walk away with a win. In Zach Shelton's case, I think partially by way of the high profile of the matches, partially by way of some jokes, also courtesy from yours truly, because it's just an unfortunate scenario of how it all broke down. Zach has had two very unfortunate losses back-to-back. In his competitors, Dean's cases, he is 0-2 right now, still looking for that first win, although certainly with the second match, some sort of, some weird shit that went down that we'll jump into. So both of these guys, I feel like, are probably in need of a win. I know knowing both of them, they're going to downplay that need, but I think they need the win tonight. So let's jump into it. Bringing in first, coming in with a record of 0 wins, 2 defeats, he is Dean Lewis. Dean, welcome back to the show, sir. The last time you were here, you competed against Kevin, which unfortunately meant you competed against me, which is one of the weirdest scenarios that we've had thus far. But I have to say, as a guy who will happily tell somebody they deserve to lose against me, I think you did hold your own for somebody who's a rookie. How are you feeling now coming into a match? Now, you have experience, so you're not new. There was no fuckery with this one. It just went through straightforward, no issues on that end. How are you feeling coming into this?
I'm feeling like I've got to bring the fuckery this time. That's how I'm feeling. I feel it's gonna be a rocky road, but I am eager to get that win. No downplaying from me because I'd be lying, and that would be bad.
Fair enough. Dean, it's good to have you back, man. I'm going to go ahead and sit you behind the scenes to bring in your opponent. Coming in with a record of 1 win, 3 defeats with 1 knockout. He is the movie fan, Zach Shelton. Zach, welcome back in, sir. So let's talk about it, obviously. Unfortunately, two high-profile opponents. Joe, obviously, even despite his time away, still one of the top-ranked players in the league. Papa, well, he's got a very big mouth, so he makes himself high-profile, and neither of those matches went your way. How are you feeling now? There's no high-profile, there's no stakes here, there's no any of that. This is just a normal match where you're hoping to pull out a victory.
Losing by knockout both times definitely was not great, but like you said, this is not as big of a high profile, but to me, I'm just looking to get back on the winning side and just looking to have this movie debate.
Absolutely. Short, sweet, simple. All right. We're going to go ahead and bring your opponent back in. Let's go ahead and jump into this. Movie Battleground is a game that is a best of 5 rounds. It is the first of 3 points wins the match. Each round of debate is worth 1 point. If a competitor picks up the first 3 points in a row, that will be a victory by knockout. If at the end of 4 rounds we have a 2-2 tie, we do have a blind round question ready, but we'll only concern you with that if we have to. In terms of the first 4 rounds, the regulation match, you guys have had the questions. You've had your time to prep. You'll get 60 seconds of an opening argument, followed by a 2-minute solo expansion period, a 4-minute back-and-forth open debate, and then 60 seconds to wrap it all up. Behind the scenes, I have 3 judges in the form of Joe, Brian, and Chad. They will join us on screen at the end of each round, and based off of the arguments that you two have made, we'll deliberate on who the winner is. With all that said, guys, are we ready to go, or do we have any questions?
I'm good.
Let's do it.
All right. So as we said, aforementioned, both of you guys had a little bit of a rocky road coming into this match. You know who else has had a real rocky road so far this year? DC. My God, what a year it is to be DC. Shazam was, how do I put this politely, an utter fucking failure at the box office. Blue Beetle looks decent. Flash looks legitimately good, except for the fact that you have a walking death trap at the star of the film, ×2. Aquaman just moved its release date because it either thinks it can compete with Ghostbusters or wants to get buried by Ghostbusters, one or the other. Yeah, that just happened. If you didn't know that, it moved its release date up by a week. What else? They're rebooting the universe, but also not rebooting the universe because enough of it's being kept that it's sort of a reboot. And James Gunn's directing a Superman film, which is either making you cream your pants or making you cream your pants and hate it. Okay, everyone's creaming for one reason or the other. DC is going through a weird transition period, so let's just take it back to a time when their films worked. Okay, well, with the exception of Justice League. The question is, what is the best DC film released in the 2010s? Again, Justice League's not the answer. I think we can all agree on that much. Justice League is not the answer, but there are two other answers, and I think we got some fighters in here. So let's jump into it. With behind the scenes, Zach, you are the higher ranked opponent, so you have the choice of which questions to go first on. You did want to take 1 and 3, which means, Dean, you're going to go first on 2 and 4. With that said, I'm going to go ahead and bring in your guys' timer. Zach, it'll go ahead and start for you when you begin speaking. Best of luck to both of you.
So my choice is Wonder Woman. And when you think of the best DC movie, you also have to think of memorable. And this movie is memorable for many reasons, but the first one obviously has to be the music. Instantly, when you hear the Wonder Woman theme, otherwise known as Is She With You by Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL, you automatically get your vision of the character. While the theme song for the opponent's movie, yes, every movie has a theme song, but it's not one that you really remember or that sticks in your mind. And I'll actually go through another memorable thing in my 2 minutes, and I'll end my time.
Well, your time ended you, sir, but thank you for the courtesy. Dean, I'm going to go back over to you, sir. You have 2 minutes when ready. Or 1 minute. No, 1 minute first, then 2 minutes. That's how this works, Aaron. 1 minute when ready.
Okay, so before I even mention what my movie is, I just want to point out that it is not a good sign when the first memorable thing about your movie is the theme. Come on, we've got everything in Man of Steel. You want to talk about memorable? People are still hotly contesting Henry Cavill to this day, 10 years later. Nobody's that bothered if Gal Gadot comes back, really? Because people want the OG of the DCEU, if it is that or was that. You've got not just a great theme, you've got Hans Zimmer rocking an entire epic orchestral phenomenon throughout this entire movie. You've got some of the craziest action you could ever see. You've got one of the most. This guy is the character. Look at him. He's ripped right off the page off of John Byrne comic. There's a memorable villain. We're going to get into so much good stuff.
And time. Oh, shit. Stupid pop-ups on StreamYard stopping me from pausing the clock. Zach, you'll get those 5 seconds back, but you have 2 minutes on the clock when you begin speaking.
So when you're also thinking about memorable, you're thinking about scenes. Now, Man of Steel has a lot of scenes, but are there ones that you instantly think of when you think of the movie? Not really. Now, when you think of Wonder Woman, you have the scene on the beach against the Germans. You have that ending fight scene, but those two don't even compare to No Man's Land. And for that, you get a not a resurgence, but you get more development with Wonder Woman. You get more of an actual story and a push forward going to the next scene. But let's also talk about the character itself. This was actually the first time you really got to see a new character in DC compared to Man of Steel. We've seen 4 other movies about Superman, and the last time you really saw a live action Wonder Woman was all the way back in 1974 with Kathy Lee Crosby in a TV movie. Now, the other thing I also want to talk about is let's talk about the main characters. I felt like you got a lot more character and development with Steve and Diana than you ever did with Lois and Clark. To me, Lois and Clark are very wooden, and they don't bring really anything to the screen. I was more captivated by Zod and by Jor-El for the entire movie than I was with Henry Cavill. Henry Cavill showed barely any emotion in this movie.
And time. All right, Dean, back over to you. 2 minutes to respond when ready.
You want to talk about memorable scenes? Wonder Woman has one memorable scene, and it is the No Man's Land. As you said, Man of Steel, we have this operatic opening on Krypton. It's like a 15-minute, maybe 20-minute, like, epic short film before the movie even starts, before he even leaves Krypton, the planet that doesn't even exist anymore. We've had this whole emotional arc of a story with Jor-El and Superman's mum, Martha, and the High Council of Krypton. We get all this fantastic stuff, and you talk about the great performance of Zod. We don't even know who the villain of Wonder Woman is until like 5 minutes before the end. And you'll talk about that epic final battle. She picks up a tank and then she puts it down. And that's it. Some fire, some really bad looking fire, I'd like to point out. We've got David Thewlis hamming it up, as opposed to Zod, who's genuinely intense and terrifying. And we actually follow the thread of his goal throughout the whole movie. And you talk about the performances. We get supporting arcs in this movie. You got the General and Fayora and all of that stuff. Jor-El carries through the whole movie via hologram, but he sticks around, and there's so many hooks in this, as opposed to Wonder Woman, where you're kind of just leaning on Chris Pine carrying this thing because they didn't want to give Gal that many lines. They were too scared to have her do too much, like sort of on an emotional spectrum in this movie. She, her arc is that she's a warrior, and then she's a warrior who likes ice cream. That's the Wonder Woman arc. Oh, but she knows, that David Thewlis is in fact David Thewlis.
And time. All right, so we're going to go ahead and go into the 4-minute open discussion. As a reminder to the players, as always, do be courteous to an extent. Give each other a chance to speak. Don't cut each other off at the immediacy. But you guys will figure out a rhythm as you go. With that said, the timer starts when the first competitor speaks.
So I wanted to actually talk about the relationship between the two main characters in each movie. I feel like with Wonder Woman, all throughout the movie, you're able to see that bond grow and develop from her saving him all the way throughout the movie. In terms of Lois and Clark, we all know that they're going to end up together, but it kind of feels forced, and it kind of feels like they just threw it in because they need to.
Of course they need to, and they get it in there just absolutely fine. They're thrown in because they're thrown into this situation together. Everyone is operating on the back foot in Man of Steel. So, we're not seeing everyone just like be really introspective and, contemplative, because they're reacting to all this crazy shit that's happening in the movie. Because in my movie, stuff actually happens, as opposed to just, it's World War One is just happening, and Wonder Woman's learning about, people wearing dresses and, walking around, getting spoken over by men in regular modern society. This is stuff that we already know. You want to talk about things that we already know? It's a non-issue, absolutely pointless. To be quite honest.
And you want to say, like, yes, you don't know who the real villain in Wonder Woman is. That's actually a good thing, because all three villains really give great performances. So it's just like they're each menaces in the movie.
Really? You want to say that Dr. Poison and what's his name from X-Men Origins Wolverine are giving great performances when they're dancing around the lab like, we're going to poison everybody? You know, it's like, what is that? Is this the 90s? I thought Wonder Woman was supposed to be progressive, but here we are, just going over overly trodden ground, just hitting all these moments, sort of by the numbers, paint by numbers kind of stuff, as opposed to go on.
Oh no, go ahead. If you want to finish your point.
No, I think that's enough for my point for now.
Okay. I also want to say, yes, you make it sound like Wonder Woman is so like shallow. It's much deeper than that. Compared to Clark and his biggest issue of like exposing himself and then he might be a threat. With Wonder Woman, Diana actually is able to see like the horrors of what mankind has been doing, and she wants to be able to go in there and try to fix that issue, and by trying to rid the world of Ares, but she's able to see a deeper meaning in the world other than just seeing herself as a threat, which is more kind of internal, in my opinion.
Oh, so it's okay for Wonder Woman to be internal, but when Henry Cavill's being internal, he's emotionless. You know what I mean? This man was wrestling. He didn't know how to relate to humanity. He didn't know why. He was obviously different. And then when he does finally become his own man, he's then thrust upon him this whole even grander, conundrum of, ethics and everything that he's got to deal with. This man is struggling. He doesn't know. He's not even, he doesn't emote like he's human because he's not human.
Time. All right, Zach, back over to you. 1 minute on the clock to close out.
So another thing about Wonder Woman that hasn't been brought up yet is that it feels like it melds multiple different genres into one, and it really does them seamlessly. You got the drama, you got the multiple scenes of action, but you also have some comedy, and none of it is really like forced in there. The comedy where she's trying to go through the revolving door with her sword and shield, that gets a chuckle. But overall, this movie has a great theme. It's memorable for the multiple scenes, and it has just a deeper understanding of what Diana, Wonder Woman, is noticing from her after her safe haven on Themyscira. So, and you also get a great building relationship between her and Steve Trevor.
And that's time. All right, Dean, over to you. Final minute of the round.
Hang on. I'm sorry. I'm just too busy laughing because Wonder Woman was trying to get through the door, but she couldn't get through the door. It's like a whole genre smorgasbord going on here. How cute. Come on, we've got a sci-fi epic, we've got a coming-of-age drama, we've got, a first contact alien invasion movie, we've got a family drama, we've got political intrigue, we've got, just like Michael Bay action extravaganza at the end, and the good Michael Bay. Don't try and use that as an argument against me. I know we're at the end, but still, this has everything. I've got 20 seconds left, and it has everything. Okay, nobody's asking for Gal Gadot to come back. Henry Cavill is still just like one of the hot. Even with a whole new universe being announced, people still want Henry Cavill back. People, if we recast Wonder Woman, are we gonna cry? Really?
And time. All right, guys, good first start. I'm gonna go ahead and put you guys in the back and bring our judges forth for the deliberations here. So just to run through a couple of fact checks from the round, things to pull up. It is worth noting that the specific song that was referenced at the start, Is She With You, which is also identified as Wonder Woman's theme, was not initially composed for the film Wonder Woman. It was developed by Hans Zimmer and Junkie XL for Batman v Superman, which was the character's introduction. It was just reused in Wonder Woman by the composer of the film, Harry Gregson Williams. Superman had 6 film appearances prior to Man of Steel. There were the 4 films that were referenced. He was also in Superman Returns, and technically the Donner cut of Superman 2 is also accredited as a separate film. The Krypton sequence is almost exactly 20 minutes of Man of Steel's runtime. It's almost to the second 20 minutes exactly of the opening of the film. The guy from X-Men Origins Wolverine is Danny Huston, portraying character General Eric Ludendorff. In terms of the genres of the films, I think we can all agree that any good film is certainly a melding of genres. However, Wonder Woman has been described as a war fantasy movie. Obviously, fantasy and them scaring all that war because it's set during World War I. It is not defined as a comedy, although, again, most good movies have comedic moments of levity. Man of Steel is also considered a sci-fi action film, in addition to both being labeled as comic book movies, since people kind of view that as a genre in and of itself now too. With that said, Joe, obviously you've been here as a competitor, but I always like to say welcome to people who are first-time judges. We'll go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point of the round?
This was a really close round. It was going back and forth for a while. I think that I got to give it to Dean, though. Talking about the bad CGI at the end of Wonder Woman. Also, the arcs, the Wonder Woman's warrior who likes ice cream. That got me. But yeah, I got to go Dean.
Okay, so the first vote does go to Dean. Brian, down to you. Same question, sir.
I'm going to give to Zach on this one. He was talking about how we haven't seen this character in the movie since a few years ago. I even talked about certain scenes for the film that was in the movie, so I'll give to Zach.
Okay, which means, Chad, we'll go to you for the split vote here. Who gets it, and what was the main selling point?
I was hoping it wasn't going to come to me because this was like one of the most even rounds. And I could see it going to either of these guys. This one's tough. I do feel like I'm just going to give it to Zach just because I feel like he just had more to say, like even like in his closing. And it felt like Dan was kind of like was scrambling around in his closing a little bit there. And I like what Zach was saying about like the score and like the character development for Diana and stuff like that. So I'll give it to Zach.
All right, judges, thank you guys so much. We're going to go ahead and sit you in the back and move on to question number 2 here with our competitors. So we're going to move over from one company who's having a horrible year to another company who's having relatively a horrible year. Netflix, who is still in the midst of, canceling everything. At this point, they've basically destroyed their entire animation division outside of Big Mouth and Big Mouth spinoffs, because that's all that's getting views for them at this point. Cancellations left, right, and center. If you like a show, it's probably getting canceled unless it's Wednesday. If you didn't watch a show, don't bother. It's also getting canceled. Any way to save money. Earlier today, actually, as of recording, a report came out that apparently they're looking to try and secure Pokemon as their next big flagship franchise to some extent, which I'm sure would help them, but let's see how it turns out. Despite that, though, Netflix can turn out some quality products, and so we're going to take it back, kind of going back to a question that we asked a long time ago, talking about the early days of Netflix's original films. 2018 was the first year where Netflix was fully indulged in the film industry. They had consistent releases throughout the entire year. They even had an Oscar nominee, I believe Best Picture nominee, if I remember correctly, in Roma from director Alfonso Cuarón. I referenced that because it wasn't one of the films that was answered, and quite frankly, as someone who watched it, I understand why. The question is, what is the best original film released by Netflix in the year 2018? Look, I get it was a Best Picture nom, but I don't want to watch the grisly birth giving of a Mexican woman in black and white. Not my cup of tea. With that said, though, we're going to go to you, Dean, for your pick. We're going to give you the timer back, sir, and it will start once you begin speaking.
I don't want that birth in black and white. I want it in color. I'm kidding. I'm not. I'm not picking Roma. That was too easy to argue against. We, on the other hand, are going with a lovely movie called Mowgli: The Legend of the Jungle. And this is a movie that had an interesting, journey. It kept getting pushed back because of another little company who also had a Jungle Book adjacent movie. Not just adjacent, it was the Jungle Book. And this movie still came out afterwards, but it was the much better movie. This movie is got crazy good animation. It's got, really heartfelt story. We've got a fantastic child performance from a child whose name I do not know, but man, his acting was good. Name not so much. This movie delivered on everything the other one failed to do. It showed that they could compete in the big budget, action adventure genre.
And time. All right, we'll go ahead. So, fun fact for everybody at home: for the longest time, because I worked at a movie theater when this was happening, I actually had a copy of the theatrical poster from this film when it was supposed to go to theaters, and then they decided to give it to Netflix instead. I don't have it anymore. I gave it to a buddy who hung it up in a room that he uses to smoke marijuana in. Also, because it'll probably come up during the argument, I'll fact check now. The actor's name is Rowan Chand. With that said, Zach, you have your pick on the table. Time starts when you begin speaking, sir.
Okay, so I'm going with a movie that was released in actually January of 2018 to really start off that Netflix original movie slate, and that is The Polka King, starring Jack Black. So this is a movie that's based off a true story about how the Polka King of Pennsylvania wants to try to make it big and does something to achieve that, which ends up shocking his fans and him getting thrown in jail. But with how crazy that character is, you need someone that will embody that fully. And why not get someone like Jack Black to do it? And you also have a great supporting cast in here, and you have a mix of comedy and drama, and I'll get more into it in 2 minutes.
All right, that's time. We have Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle versus the Polka King. Dean, back over to you, sir. Time starts when you begin speaking.
You say it's a comedy, and it's supposed to be a comedy, and we all want it to be a comedy, but is it? Because it's really light on the laughs, and they are in there, don't get me wrong, but also it's just a really uncomfortable, slimy, grimy, hour 45 of just a guy who's just screwing other people out of money because they like him. And I don't need to see real life right now, or even in 2018. Those are my last 2 years before the whole world went to shit. I want to enjoy them. I want to go to magical fantasy lands. Okay, I want to see animals that are animated, that they look real, but also not 100% real, because they need to have some kind of element of fantasticalness to them, which is what a lot of the Disney, live action CGI remake stuff he's missing the mark on, where they're trying to make everything look too grim and serious. Whereas Mowgli, Legend of the Jungle, its grimness and its seriousness is in the content of the movie itself, and we can have more expressive, slightly exaggerated features on all these creatures played by Christian Bale. We've got Andy Serkis directing this, and he's in this. We've got Kate Blanchett as a snake Blanchett. What more could you want? This is an actual retelling, not just a retreading of that story. The CGI, I've said it already, is fantastic. All the performances in this are great. You can tell that this is an actor who understands what he's asking his actors to do when they're playing, talking panthers and stuff.
and time. All right, Zach, back over to you.
So I brought up the cast in my first minute, but let's expand on that a little bit and let's talk about how they stand out more than Mowgli. It's basically the main focus is on 4 characters. Like I said, you get Jack Black, you get Jenny Slate as Marla, his wife, you get Jason Schwartzman as Mickey Pizzazz. Who wouldn't want a name like that? And then you also get Jackie Weaver as Barb, his mother-in-law. Oh, and I also forgot JB Smoove is in the movie. But they all have their own personalities and quirks. And even though you have bigger names in Mowgli, to me, I just felt like none of them ever actually stood out and made themselves like someone that you remember from this movie. And also, yes, while the animation is great at times, it also can be a little cartoony. And let's also talk about the pacing of both movies. I feel like with Mowgli, it didn't really have a great flow to it. You had heightened moments like the fire scene, but then it really slows down when you get to like the man village. And it doesn't pick up until you really get back into the jungle. You have one small scene before then, but ultimately that man village kind of really hurt the movie, in my opinion. Whereas with the Polka King, I felt like there was no downtime at all. And I felt like you got to definitely go along on the journey with Jan Levon and really get to see what he was going through in this movie.
All right, that is time. We're going to go ahead and jump into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will pick back up when the first competitor speaks.
You want to talk about cartoony, but you don't want to mention Jack Black's Polish accent. That's a bold move there, Zachary, because that is a really distractingly bad Polish accent. I think it's Polish that he's doing, right? You researched the movie more than I did, for sure. But it's entertaining all the way through. This is about a folk singer running a Ponzi scheme. Like, there's not that much comedy or drama to be derived from this situation. And casting Jack Black is going to get you a little extra mileage, for sure. But really, it's a slog. It's an absolute slog. If you want something where Jack Black's doing dark humor, you want to watch like Bernie or Envy. There's multiple other movies where he's doing this kind of movie, but a lot better than Polish Money Snatcher with an accordion soundtrack.
I was going to say, if you want to talk again, I feel like at least with my movie, you get multiple genres. Like, comedy is definitely subjective, and this might be more like outlandish for some people, and it could work for some people, but you also, you also get that drama in there. I feel like it's all straight drama with Mowgli, and you really, even though it is, like I said, it's slow at times, it's still like you still don't get any like levity to really like get away from that drama.
I don't know, man. Andy Serkis is Baloo. He's like so. On one hand, he's sort of like terrifying. He's a giant bear, as a giant bear should be. But on the other hand, he's warm and inviting. You can really tell that they put a lot of thought into making these characters fully 3-dimensional and not just in the animation sense. And Benedict Cumberbatch as Shere Khan, man, that's terrifying. Even Benedict Cumberbatch as a dragon is less terrifying than Benedict Cumberbatch as a freaking tiger. And he's straight in there at the beginning, setting the tone. This film, has some real grit to it. The kids can watch this, adults can watch this. We're talking about multi-genre. There's levity in this. There's some real darkness. It is still an adventure romp. It's got a lot of grit to it, and it's not always fun because, spoiler alert, kids, adventures are not always fun. Sometimes you step on a twig, get gangrene, and die. Okay, that's life in the jungle. Man Village is supposed to be boring in comparison.
Yeah, I just, again, and I'll bring up Benedict Cumberbatch just for a second, but I just feel like there was more of a character, at least with Smaug, and even more of a character with Shere Khan with Idris Elba in the Disney version than there was in this one. And again, it's very dark, and that might turn people away, but at least with, like I said, at least with my movie, you get some comedy in there, and you get a story that you can at least follow along with, and maybe at first you're actually rooting for Jan, and then you get to, like I said, you get to go through what he's doing in the movie.
And that is time. All right, we're going to go into the 1 minute closings. Dean, you're back up first. Time starts when you begin speaking, sir.
We're not rooting for Jan. If you're rooting for Jan, then that's a you problem, okay? And that, in which case, you're a broken man, and all your arguments are invalid, and I can just walk out that door right now because I win. You're rooting for this. It's a pyramid scheme. It's just it's just watching a fraudster, take advantage of people. We see that every day in real life. I don't need that on Netflix in my home where I sleep. That's not what I come here for. I come for adventure. I come for thrills, chills, creepy villains, likable, roguish heroes. This has got everything. This is Netflix really planting their flag. Like, we can do and compete with the big blockbuster, Disney studio movies, and they continue to do so ever since, built on the foundation of things like this.
And time. All right. Zach, back over to you. Final minute.
So I wasn't mentioning that you root for him the entire time. At the beginning of the movie, you do, and then you get to see what he goes through and all that. But things that my movie has that I think are better than yours in terms of I think it's a better paced movie. It definitely has a better flow. I feel like it definitely shows off multiple genres instead of just one. And like I said at the beginning, you have characters that might not be as well known as the characters in your movie, but they have their own quirks and personality that makes them stand out in this movie compared to yours. It's like, yes, they're bigger names, but did any of them do anything to be as memorable as even the Disney version? And I'll end it there.
All right, that is time. Once again, guys, I'm going to go ahead and set both of you in the back and bring on the judges. So just to clean this up with a couple of fact checks, at one point the runtimes were brought up. I think they got confused with whoever said it. The Polka King is 95 minutes. Mowgli is the one that is 105 minutes or an hour 45. So there's about 10-minute difference between them. The man at the center of the Polka King is Jan Lewandowski, or Jan Lewan in America. He is Polish. That is correct, Dean. That's the accent that they are going for. He is a Polish-American, what's his technical term? Polka singer who was arrested for criminal fraud based off of a gift store that he owned. That's just the basic premise of what he was arrested for. I also learned in doing some research that he was attacked in prison. He was stabbed in the neck by a cellmate. That cellmate got 15 extra years for that attack. So I hope that was worth it for you, buddy. And then an interesting fun fact. So both of these movies, Mowgli and The Jungle Book, came out within about 2 years of each other. And there was initially a lot of worry from the studio. That's part of the reason why Mowgli, despite being filmed in 2015, wasn't released until 2018. Warner Brothers, who initially made it, was worried about releasing a Jungle Book film too close to Disney's Jungle Book film. If there's any misconception about why the stories are different, it's because they're actually not based on the same thing. The Jungle Book is based on The Jungle Book, the book by Rudyard Kipling, as well as the Disney film that it is remaking. Mowgli is actually based on the book All the Mowgli Stories by Rudyard Kipling, which is a compilation story of short stories that were both included in The Jungle Book and its sequel, and also a couple of short stories that were originally written after the fact. So it's kind of amalgamating this Jungle Book-like story out of just different aspects of the book while including all the same characters that you would recognize, because that's, of course, a part of the IP. So just a fun fact for anyone who didn't know that. So with that said, Brian, I go to you first. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, this will even match the debate. I'll give it to Zach on this one. He talks about how his characters are more stand out over these movies, so I'm going with Zach.
Okay, Chad, I go down to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, I mirror things Brian said there. Very even, but I'm also going to go Zach here, just because I felt like he was like more rounded in his arguments, and he had like a really good point where he's talking about how Mowgli doesn't have a lot of like lightness to counteract a lot of the very seriousness that it has. And Dean tried to say, well, Baloo is very warm and inviting, but it just didn't really sell that as a point against. I just liked how he was talking about like a lot of the more of the movie than I think Dean was able to about Mowgli, just focusing on. But Dean did have some good, I will say, attacks against Polka King. I just don't think it was enough to sway me.
All right. Judges, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and sit you guys in the back, and we will jump on forward to question number 3 here, as we are going to be moving on from a studio that had a horrible year to a studio that had a horrible year to a studio that had a great year. And no, this technically isn't about a studio, but Tom Cruise may as well be a studio. He does legally own an insurance company, which means he is a small business owner. Good for you, Tom. No, Tom Cruise had a hell of a year. Steven Spielberg was even quoted as saying Tom Cruise and Top Gun Maverick saved movie theaters. And if that's the praise you're getting from Steven Spielberg, you probably did something to earn it. With that said, similar as to the others, let's take a look back to a heyday for this person. The question is, what is the best Tom Cruise film of the 1980s? And if your question at home is, do I plan these questions with the way that I can segment them? The answer is no. Sometimes things just work out for me. With that said, Zach, you're going to be up first on this one. Time starts when you begin speaking. I'll bring the timer in for you.
Okay, so when you hear the words Tom Cruise and 80s, what is the first movie that comes to mind? And if you're thinking Top Gun, then you know the answer I'm going to give. So I'm going to kind of go off what I started question 1 with, and let's talk about the iconic music with this. You have that great theme that starts the movie by Harold Faltermeyer. You get Danger Zone by Kenny Loggins. You get Take My Breath Away and You Lost That Lovin' Feelin'. All those are still known to this day to be associated with this movie. And you also have some great characters in here that I will expand on in my 2 minutes.
All right, that is time. If I can get comply with me. God damn it, sometimes the... All right, Dean, you're going to move on to your opening minute. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Just want to say real quick, that movie is known because of the songs, not the other way around. But anyway, when you talk about the 80s and Tom Cruise, sure, Top Gun is the first movie that comes to your mind. Is it the best? No. You talk about, burgers, McDonald's is the first name that comes to mind. They're not the best. That doesn't mean anything We want quality. We want richness. We want Rain Man. We want something that not only has dug into the pop culture zeitgeist since its release, but is also good. We've got performances. We've got actual subject matter. We've got an actual storyline. Imagine that in an 80s movie. We've got 4 Academy Awards on this movie's name. Best screenplay, best director, best supporting actor, etc. Dustin Hoffman, Tom Cruise, obviously. This movie.
It's all right. You will have an opportunity to say more. Before that, though, Zach, you do get 2 minutes on the clock. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So let's talk about the great characters in this. You have Maverick, played by Cruise. You have Iceman by Val Kilmer. You have Goose, played by Anthony Edwards, I think his name is. But you also get the love interest Charlie. You get Viper, played by Tom Skerritt. You also get James Tolkien in here with a great role. And I think that one thing that definitely sets my movie apart over Rain Man is that all the performances kind of feel natural. In terms of Rain Man, I always felt the 2 main actors were very much overacting in a way, and nothing felt genuine or even believable. And you really don't even, to me, see a change in Tom Cruise's character. You get hinted at it at the end, but like I said, it doesn't feel like real life or reality in that sense. And last thing I'll say with the 2 movies, at least now, is that they both explore the theme of brotherhood, but that is shown better in my movie about having each other's backs than compared to Rain Man, where it just seems like for the majority of the movie, I guess being a brother is just trying to take advantage of your sibling. So I'll end the rest of my time there.
All right, that is time. Dean, back over to you. You have those 2 minutes to continue when ready.
Naming characters is not a character make. It doesn't matter how cool and one-wordy names you give them all. Whatever. Okay, they're just a bunch of bros at the start of the movie who fly and drink and play frolic on the beach. And that's what they are at the end of this movie. There might be one less of them or whatever. Excuse me, but that's it. He learns. We learn. Everyone learned when we watched this movie. This movie raised so much awareness for autism. It wasn't even something that was really portrayed or spoken about in the media or in culture in general. People still reference this movie to this day. And I know you might even come back at me with, it's a stereotypical or it's a little bit broad, but we needed a gateway into this stuff, And Tom Cruise, he's a jerk. He's taking advantage of the guy. And at the end of the movie, he learns, and he has learned that there is a guy there that he has been taking advantage. He learns that this is this isn't just, this isn't just a thing that this guy has. This is a person, and we all learn that. And, this stuff with the counting the cards and, and all of that stuff is still in pop culture just as much as, sweaty, oily, greasy looking dudes in the gym locker room, whipping each other and rolling around in the sand, and we all have a roll around in the sand, Zachary, but a good movie is not.
I'm going to take that as
That's
time.
my time. Yeah, sorry.
And I'm just going to add quickly, as somebody who lives in Florida, not all of us love a roll in the sand. Maybe over there it's a more comfortable sand. But here, look, my white ass is just going to come out looking like a raw steak, and sand will be everywhere, and it's not fun. But that's not what this 4 minutes is about. It's going to be about the movies instead. Unless you want to spend 4 minutes talking about sand rolling. That's your choice. The timer starts when the first competitor speaks.
So I want to bring up two characters that are like not as in it as much, but let's talk about the leading ladies in this movie. I feel like Charlie at least has a purpose in this movie, both being supportive for Maverick, but also being an instructor. Whereas, what does Susanna even do, or what is her role in this movie other than the elevator smooching scene?
Yeah, I mean, we all have a good smooch in the elevator. I Steven Tyler, but even with smooching in an elevator, even with fighter pilots and sports and action and bros, this movie still made less than my movie, which is about autism awareness. This movie made like over $400 million. Your movie couldn't even barely crack 3.5. 100 obviously, but you got to ask yourself, like, why is that? Who wants to go and see my movie? It's just about one dude with a thing that I don't understand and another dude who's not a nice dude. Why wouldn't I want to go and see pew pew, you know, whoosh whoosh, whatever. And it's the quality of the writing, the Barry Levinson writing and directing, the quality just speaks for itself on every level. And, no amount of Kenny Loggins is going to get you over, at least in my opinion, and hopefully in that of the judges.
So let me ask you, outside of the whole Vegas card counting scene, does your movie have any more like iconic scenes? With Top Gun, you have the beach volleyball scene. You have, I can't even think right now.
You got no other scene. Listen, it's not about the quality of the scenes, it's about how the scenes come together.
Does your movie have any iconic lines? Like, I feel the need for speed, and you can have my back anytime, Iceman.
That's not a line. That's a Pepsi slogan. You know what I mean? That's not a thing that people say. I mean, it is in the movie, but it's not really. These are real people. It's not about, snappy one-liners or memorable, flashy moments. It's about the ongoing struggle with these two characters, and how they're so diametrically opposed, but how they still manage to find some kind of synergy and comfort, in each other and also themselves, which I didn't feel very comfortable watching Top Gun.
See, and I will say, at least one of my problems with your movie is that it took an hour to really get into the movie. With Top Gun, you're in it from the very beginning, and it just it was so much downtime before you really got to the main story and the main character development when it came to Rain Man.
Anything that peaks in the first couple of minutes isn't anything worth having, in my opinion, but I'm not going to go down that road in the last 5 seconds there.
All right, that is time. We do have 1 minute left on the round for the closing. Zach, you're back up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
So, outside of this movie having iconic lines and iconic scenes, also the Goose death scene, that was the one I forgot, and also having great music, this movie actually was able to help the home video market because of having the Pepsi logo at the beginning, outside of it, the movie after first release going to video stores, they were able to drop the price down to actually have consumers buy this for their own homes. And I feel like this movie being able to do that definitely elevated it in a different way. But like I said, you have great characters, a great soundtrack, and just it's, to me, more memorable than Rain Man.
And time. All right, Dean, back over to you. Final minute when ready.
I fail to see how them reducing the price of this movie to sell it is a plus point. That's called a bargain bin, man. This movie is, like I said earlier, it's fast food. There's no substance to this. Yeah, you've got, iconic moments and needle drops with the soundtrack and all of that stuff, but something that's actually got, emotion and depth, and something where you're going to keep coming back at different stages of your life and you're going to find different things in it and about yourself every time you watch it. Like I said, this movie is Academy Award level. It blasted your movie out of the box office. That doesn't even make sense to me. I was researching this. I couldn't believe it. I checked 3 times. How does Rain Man make an extra $60 million? It's all in the quality, baby. It's, Dustin Hoffman in a career cementing performance. Tom Cruise, obviously. Come on.
All right, guys, that is the end of the round. I'm going to go ahead and sit you guys in the back for the judges to come in. As we'll run over just some quick checks here again as well. So first off, Rain Man was nominated for 8 Academy Awards following the year of 1988. It was nominated for Best Art Direction, Cinematography, Editing, and Original Score for Hans Zimmer. It won 4 of them: Best Picture for producer Mark Johnson, Director for Barry Levinson, Best Actor for Dustin Hoffman, and Best Original Screenplay as well. Top Gun actually was an Academy nominee. It did have 4 nominations. Was nominated for editing, sound, and special effects. It won only one of them, its 4th nomination, for Take My Breath Away and Best Original Song. The character of Goose was played by Anthony Edwards. You were correct about that. It's also worth noting that the only actor that wasn't named from the lead cast of Top Gun was Kelly McGillis, who plays the character of Charlie. Speaking of, there was a brief moment where there was a discussion over the semantics of women's roles in these films. For what it's worth, neither of them passed the Bechdel test, which is the main go-to for women equality in film. Top Gun does slightly better because it has 2 female characters of name, whereas Rain Man only has 1 in the main girlfriend. That are at least noteworthy. And I don't even think that's actually correct. So I'm pretty sure isn't there like a stripper or something in Rain Man that's like a second character?
There's like a hooker, yeah, that shows up.
Okay, yeah, so there's 2 in both. And then the final fact is actually correct. Top Gun grossed, and this obviously in 1986, grossed $357.3 million on a $15 million budget, so it's certainly not a slouch. However, Rain Man, a couple years later during the Oscar season, now there is a range of box office. It's not 100% certain what the film's final gross was, but its lowest estimate comes in at about $355, meaning Rain Man made just $2 million less than Top Gun, if that is correct. Its highest estimate is at about $413 million, meaning it would have outgrossed Top Gun by a good little bit there. Well over 50 million. Now, I'm sure the actual number does fall somewhere in the middle of that range. That's usually how these things work, but still, it did outgross Top Gun, if that is correct. So with that said, Chad, we're going to go to you first. Based on the arguments, as concise as you can hit it for me, who gets your vote and what was the main selling point?
Yeah, this one was very easy. It was the first one that was really easy for me. I went Dean, like hands down with this one, just because he sold like the quality of his movie versus like Top Gun is basically just music and, bros rolling around in the sands, I mean, it's a little dismissive, but you're debating, you got to do what you got to do. But yeah, he really sold the quality and how, at first the two characters, the brothers, one is exploiting the other, and then he learns to accept him, and they accept each other, stuff like that. And the line that I loved was like Top Gun is like basically the McDonald's of 1980s Tom Cruise. And Dean just like the whole time was just every time Zach had a point, he had a counter, he had something to say. And it was just like, Zach just couldn't keep up with that. And his closing was fantastic too. So, Dean.
All right, Joe, down to you. Who gets your vote?
I'm also going to have to go with Dean on this one. He did a good job of not only proving why his movie was good, whereas I felt Zach, he showed like there were great moments in his movie. But Dean did a better job of explaining why the movie as a whole was a better film. He showed us the complete arc of a character, the growth, the transformation, the relationship between the two brothers and all that. So I had to go with Dean.
All right, guys, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back and bring back in the competitors. We're going to go ahead and move on to question number 4. And this one's going to be a little bit of a stretch, but I'm going to try and keep the motif running here. Let's jump back to a studio that is definitely having a struggle moment right now, because as of the upload of this match, which I always like to stress because it confuses the competitors when I don't, this upcoming weekend, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3 is hitting theaters, and Marvel is fucking hoping that this one hits, because Ant-Man obviously did not live up to expectations. Critically, it didn't really hit. Audience-wise, it didn't hit the way they wanted it to. Box office-wise, it certainly didn't hit. It flopped very much under the impressive March release month that existed. However, one of the cast members of Guardians 3 who's had an interesting last few years is Mr. Vin Diesel. When he's not busy starring in movies that do make money, he's busy pissing off different people within the industry and making him quit his franchises that make money. But with that said, Vin is known as an actor, but he's not known for his acting. So the question here tonight is, what is Vin Diesel's best performance? This is weird. This is gonna be a weird one to see break down. I'm just gonna be honest with you guys. So let's jump into it. Dean, you got a weird pick. Zach, you got a weird pick for performances. Let's see how this shakes down. With that said, Dean, your timer gets to go first when you are ready, sir.
Is it a weird pick though? Because I would bet $1 million that if you ask anyone this question, apart from Zachary, apparently, of course, but everyone else, I'm willing to bet very good money, would say what I'm about to say, which is the Iron Giant. It's the precursor to Groot. It's a voice performance only, which is not to take anything away from voice acting. It's just obviously Vin Diesel is not on screen, which I think actually helps the performance because, if we're looking at Vin Diesel, we're thinking of the pacifier, which is not good. And this is peak 90s animation. It was that really great period before we got like the oversaturation of the 3D stuff with a really great 2D animation, classic like 50s sci-fi story updated for modern age, great buddy movie, coming of age.
And time. All right, Zach, back over to you. Opening minute when ready.
So when you think of Vin Diesel, you definitely think of action and drama. Now, let's go into a genre that he really isn't much proficient in, but this example is like the first wave into it. And I'm talking about The Pacifier from Disney. This was actually his first Disney movie, and I chose this because since he is known for those other things, this was a way for him to show his range and go into that family movie, but also the comedy mixed with action. And I'll get more into why I think it was a great performance in my 2 minutes.
All right, that is time. We're going to go back over to you, Dean. 2 minutes on the clock when ready.
Okay, let's be clear. Vin Diesel did not pick this role to show his range. he picked this role because at some point in every action star's career, they have to do a shitty kids comedy to try and show that they have different sides, when all in fact they do is show that they only have one strong side. This is his Mr. Nanny. This is his kindergarten cop. This is, daddy daycare. This is every actor's nightmare, and unfortunately, it's every viewer's nightmare as well. We're just going to have a big strong man struggle with, reinforcing all these negative gendered stereotypes. Oh, he's got to heat up a bottle. He's got to, take a temperature. He's got to make sure that you're not late for ballet class or whatever. That's not things that Vin Diesel should be doing. How weird is that? That's not enough to carry a movie. It's not funny. It's not clever. It's just to buy the numbers. We've got to fill a calendar slot here. We've got a release schedule. We've got to keep those metrics rolling. This is just, God, was this even theatrically released? Because it looks and feels like a Disney Channel original movie. There's no range here. It's just Vin not doing what Vin does best. And with somebody like Vin, you want to see them do that. And, you want to see him use that gravelly voice, that stoic voice, but in a slightly different context that reframes it. So he's not just, your action hero, but he's a superhero, but also he's like he's a friend to a kid. He's E.T., but, less slimy and more shiny. There you go. There's your slogan.
Time. All right, Zach, back over to you.
So one thing I want to bring up in this 2 minutes, let's talk about casting. So Vin Diesel was born in 1967, which at the time would make him about 38 for this movie. So if you're looking at 2005 and what actors could have actually played this, you could come up with like 4, including Diesel, Statham, Antonio Banderas, and Jean-Claude Van Damme would be about that same age range. Banderas and Jean-Claude Van Damme would not be believable in that role. And also, Statham, to me, does not show as much range as Diesel. So that's why I feel like his performance works, because he is able to show that range and be believable in the movie compared to other actors that would have played it. You even get like those awkward moments dealing with the kids or dealing with the duck or the assistant principal. It's like he also gets to show off his action in that wrestling scene, but also have those comedic chops. Like I said, with the problem with your movie is like, yes, people know of the movie, but this movie deals more in terms of the performance rather than the entire movie. And I'm going to end my time there.
Okay. All right. We'll go ahead. Let me skip it forward just a little bit. So we're going to go ahead and jump into the 4-minute open discussion. The timer will start back up once the first competitor speaks.
Okay, you absolutely can't sell me on your movie based on the notion of, well, Jean-Claude Van Damme wouldn't have done it as good, because obviously he wouldn't have done it as good, and it's a non-issue because he's not in the movie. He got beaten to the movie, if he even tried to be in this movie, by Vin Diesel. And you want to talk about, the casting, Vin Diesel wasn't even like a name actor when he was cast in The Iron Giant. He'd barely even been in anything other than like a Street Sharks commercial and like maybe like the first Fast and Furious movie. So this movie isn't even relying on the name or the star power. It's just taking somebody who had a certain something that was the best thing for that role, and it shows in spades through this movie. And those bassy, dulcet tones really anchor this movie in a way that, a lot of straight dudes probably aren't ready to start grappling with. You feel warm, you feel at home, even though you're with a weird alien robot that's, like fighting the military. We've got action in this, you know, there is comedy, there's heart, there's adventure, there's family drama and emotion and everything. Your movie doesn't rely on the performance. It's just like broad jokes and like obvious slapstick comedy. You could get a chat GPT to write you one of these movies. It'd probably spit you out the Tooth Fairy with The Rock or what, the game plan or whatever. They're just the same. There's a million of these. There's only one Iron Giant.
See, you're describing the movie. I want to refer back to the question, which is, what is his best performance? And I feel like it's kind of hard to have that performance in the Iron Giant when he barely speaks, and when he does, it's a lot of just repeating what Hogarth says. He has that one line about that I am not a gun, but everything else in this movie is just repeating what was already said. So at least with mine, you at least get to see a performance and how he goes through those awkward moments and how he deals with the comedy and showing the family aspect and the action. Like I said, with yours, it's hard to judge a performance based on very limited talking and a lot of just repeating what was said early in the movie by another character.
Repeating is part of the genius, though, because every time he says something back that one of the other characters has said, he's recontextualizing not only what they just said, but his own emotions in his own context, and his own role within the context of the story. Every time he says one of those lines, it just makes you think of it in a completely different way, in the way that it was intended and said by the other character. It's utilizing the tools that you have, and the director of this movie, Brad Bird, obviously knew exactly what they wanted to get out of Vin Diesel in this movie, and that is exactly what they got out of him. Whereas anyone can, be late for soccer practice and fumble about with, a pram and a baby seat and a car thing or whatever. Anyone, I could do that. I've done that.
And time. All right, we're going to go into the 1 minute closing here. Dean, you are back up first. Time starts when you begin speaking.
Yeah, you bring it all back to the performance, and in the case of this movie, the performance is there in complete service of the movie, and the movie works because of this one performance. Because a lot of these, a lot of this era of like the Disney movies, of the animation and stuff, and I know this is Disney, but we don't really know who the voice actors are. A lot of them, this is back before they started casting a lot of like big name actors to fill these roles, and these roles were only given to voice actors really at this time, except for like Robin Williams or something in Aladdin. And Vin Diesel was not at that level, but he got that role. He brought it to that level, and even though this movie didn't do that well financially, it is remembered so fondly by so many people. So many kids love this so much.
And time. All right, Zach, back over to you. Final minute of the round.
So again, I want to get back to the question asked, because it seems like, yes, a lot of people remember the movie, and it seems like you could have gotten any actor with a deeper voice to play this with a character that barely speaks in the movie. With my movie, you get someone who is known primarily for action, being able to show the range that he has by showcasing his role in a family movie that's also a comedy with some action. And it seems like with all of those together and actually seeing the performance on screen, you're able to get a more well-rounded performance by Vin Diesel in The Pacifier.
All right, that is time. We're going to go ahead and sit you guys in the back and go to our judges. So to clean up some fact checks here really quickly on these two films, The Pacifier is the first film in which Vin Diesel did work with Disney. It's also worth noting that going through his entire filmography, unless you want to count the MCU as kids films, quote unquote, which I would personally not. I'd just say they are more kid friendly. You guys picked the only 2 kids films in his entire career. That's just more a fun fact than anything else. But yeah, so this was his first film that he did with Disney. In terms of the role of Shane Wolf in The Pacifier, if I follow the timeline correctly based off of research, Jackie Chan was the original actor who was attached to this film. However, he later pulled out but left his stunt team to work on the movie. His own stunt team did the action choreography for the film, and they also appear in it as the ninjas that appear in the film. Following Chan's exit, the director of the film, Adam Shankman, wanted Jason Statham for the role, but Disney felt that he wasn't suited to it. Disney attempted to push for a bigger name. The likes of Dwayne Johnson and Bruce Willis were passed around before they eventually settled on Vin Diesel, who was hot off the back of the early Fast and Furious films, as well as Triple X, which was a relative success at the time. The Iron Giant is Vin Diesel's 3rd film role. His only 2 roles prior to this were in the movie Strays, which was an independent film that he also wrote and directed, and he had already been in Saving Private Ryan as a part of the team. However, The Iron Giant was his 3rd film even before the Fast and Furious movies, which wouldn't come out till a couple of years later. And then finally, when talking about the Iron Giant's cast, the Iron Giant was actually one of the first films which is acknowledged as having a sort of celebrity cast, although I say sort of because every single role at one point had bigger actors attached to it, so it's sort of weird. Eli Marienthal was not a known name who voices Hogarth. However, Jennifer Aniston, Harry Connick Jr., Christopher McDonald, and John Mahoney do make up the rest of that cast. But at various different points, actors like Sarah Michelle Gellar, Meg Ryan, Matthew Broderick, Robin Williams, Tommy Lee Jones, James Woods, Dennis Hopper, and Jack Nicholson were all attached to the cast before dropping out. The final point is it's worth noting that there may not have been a lot of people who could have played the Iron Giant. According to an interview that Brad Bird gave years after the film, the original plan was just to have the Giant's voice be electronically modulated to sound more like computer noises. And it wasn't until he had met Vin Diesel and heard his voice that he decided to go with a physical actor for the role, at which point they would modulate the voice after the fact. So it seems as though, according to the director himself, Vin was the only choice because there wasn't a first choice. With that said, though, Joe, I'm going to go to you. Who gets your vote, and what was the main selling point on the round?
I have to go with Zach. He focused a lot more on why his performance was better as opposed to the whole movie, where Dean sold me that his movie is much better. I just feel like Zach did a better job of answering the exact question.
Okay. Brian, down to you.
Yeah, I'm also going to Zach on this one. He sold me all about how for Dean's movie, the character was exactly what Hogarth says, as Zach focused more on the performance of Vin Diesel than the movie, so Zach gets my pick.
Okay, all right. Judges, I'm going to go ahead and sit you guys in the back. Thank you for your time tonight, because your winner by a final score of 3-1 is Zachary Shelton, pulling out a much-needed victory, I assume, sir. So that is a second win for you, a bit of a comeback following your last couple of matches. How does it feel?
Good. It's good to be, after those last 2 matches, it's good to get back into the win column and just looking forward to hopefully improving on that. So I also want to say good game to Dean.
Absolutely. So obviously, after your first win, and this is just blunt honesty, I haven't hidden that. I think you set your sights a little high after that first win. So I'm going to ask you this question, bearing that in mind. Now that you've got another win under your belt, what are you looking forward to in your next match? What's kind of something you want to see, or is there someone in mind you want to play, or just kind of what are your thoughts going forward?
To be honest, there's a lot of people I want to play, but I'll take whoever is next.
Okay. All right. Political answer. Zach, congratulations to you on the win, sir. I'm going to go ahead and sit you in the back and bring in your opponent. Until next time, sir, take care. As we'll go ahead and bring in Dean. Once again, sir, I think we're continuing to see a growth of player. Eventually, that will result in a first win, but for tonight, it isn't quite there. How are you feeling?
Yeah, no, it's good. I'm not feeling too bad at all about it. It's a little bit frustrating. I feel like I've got this very slippery boulder that I'm almost kind of getting up the hill there. And I just feel like any moment now I'm on the precipice, I'm going to get it all the way up. I'm going to get that win. I'm learning every time, so it's bound to happen eventually. The odds are in my favour if I play a million matches, if you'll have me. So hopefully we'll get that on the board soon, and I'll come back and get that win.
Absolutely. Listen, we're willing to have people here as long as they want to play. And the last person that said that, it took 4 losses for Jake to get a win, but he did get a win eventually. So hopefully in the future, maybe in the next one, if not, then maybe the one after that. But we will be looking forward to that win, sir. Till then, we will see you in the next one. Take care of yourself. And just based on recording time, get some rest, man. You probably earned it. With that said, we'll put you in the back. And guys, that'll be it. Dean, of course, again, I think continuing growth as a player, but just not quite enough today. Zach, though, picking up that second win, picking up a much needed win, I'm sure, for confidence, and I'm sure for his place in the leaderboard. So it'll be interesting to see where he can go from here. Can he build on the momentum he'll be feeling coming out of this match? Only time will tell. With all that said, though, guys, thank you so much for watching this match. Be sure to stick around as we have more Movie Battleground matches coming each and every week. Subscribe to the channel, rate the video, drop a comment, and interact with the show. I want to say thank you again to my competitors, Zach and Dean, for putting on a great show tonight. Thank you to my judges, Joe, Chad, and Brian, for being here with us. And on behalf of myself and everyone here at the show, my name is Aaron Canola, and we will see you next time. Take care, everybody.